I worry when they invent characters who shouldn't be there just for the sake of putting them in. Like, in Star Wars terms, how many times does Tatooine become a pivotal planet on the galactic stage, as if some divine force was orchestrating events and the Tatooine is important. Uh, well, that really shoots my own argument with circular logic. The point is, I don't have a problem with like looking at, oh, cool. I thought when I saw the Black Dwarf woman, Disa, oh, cool. She must be a Blacklock. That's interesting world building. That we never see all the dwarves. And this is a crucial. I don't really have a problem with invented characters in entirely invented storylines, but keep in mind, Tolkien didn't write this. It's like when there's a new video game. Some video games that are based on Lord of the Rings are actually pretty good. Many are not. Like the Battle for Middle-earth series has a strong following because like the writing on it was pretty good. Even when they invented characters, they you could tell they were paying attention. Other stuff, not so much. So it'll rise or fall on its own strengths. Of just like Durin the Fourth is a character mentioned as he's the dwarf king of Khazad-dûm of Moria during the Second Age, during the War of the Last Alliance, and this is some dwarf woman he meets from one of the other tribes. That's fine. These are mostly original characters, other than we know that Durin the Fourth was his name. We don't know much about him. Point is, I don't have a problem with characters that are totally invented and in invented storylines. What is a problem is when you invent characters heavily interacting with canon characters, you're changing the canon character. That of everything we saw in this preview, the thing I worried about the most was Galadriel. That, okay, cool, it's Galadriel. Some people are complaining that they show her in armor. No, the Silmarillion and stuff, the books do mention in her youth she was a great warrior, very feared among the High Elves and the Noldor. She's from House Finarfin. She's unusually tall, even by elf standards. That she's a warrior, fine. They mention that. They could overplay it. Admittedly, but that could be said of any role. It's a warrior woman, it could be overplayed. But she does stuff. She's a war leader. I don't have a problem with that. It's that line where they said she's on a raft with this human who gets entwined with her storyline. This mortal castaway named Halbrand, and she's in a shipwreck. Why would she be on a ship? Is it? I'm assuming the best case scenario, she's trying to sail back to Valinor, but her ship gets wrecked in a magical storm because she's been refused to return. Which she was at that time. They said, you can't come back. You didn't apologize for rebelling in the first place. They let her go back eventually in Lord of the Rings because she refused the Ring of Power. But that's before that she can't go back. And they'll mention that in this, that why can't she go back? Some of the other ones can, she can't. That she's the last of the originals that sailed directly to Middle-earth at the beginning of the First Age, rebelling against the powers to come and bring the fight to the first Dark Lord. Not that she was in the kinslaying, but I digress. The point is, I guess that's why she might be on a ship, and yes, she could meet humans. Maybe it's a man from Numenor. Presumably, Galadriel did interact with many men from Numenor during her time in Lindon, which is the Grey Havens, Blue Mountains area. But this shocked me the most, more than the race. Oh yeah, there's some black dwarves. Yeah, I guess there'd be black elves. These must be Avari, or even hobbits, proto-hobbits of different tribes. It's when you invent characters with major storylines. I'm worried they're going to invent a love triangle with a human or something. With Galadriel of all people, just hypothetically, that would ruin us. That is ridiculous. Versus, hey, can we have a self-contained vignette with some proto-hobbits and they're actually a couple of different races? Fine, it doesn't really affect anything. Versus if you're screwing up the handful of continuing characters like elves, because elves are immortal, even the dwarves are technically, they're new characters, even though they live for hundreds of years. The main ones, Galadriel, Elrond, who have stories to ruin, or historical humans we have writings about, like Elendil and Isildur. They invented a sister for Isildur. Granted, he could have had one. Maybe she dies when the Númenóreans get seduced by Sauron to worship literally Satan, Morgoth, and conduct human sacrifices to him. And there's a small persecuted minority of the Numenorians as Atlantis turns dark, and there's all this devil worship among the great imperious white coastal power enslaving everyone, and they're conducting human sacrifices, and they're literal devil worshippers, and Sauron is the right hand of the king. There's a small minority led by Elendil, the son of Isildur, who they're called the faithful because they still believe in Iluvatar is literally the Judeo-Christian god, although Christ isn't around yet, but they believe in the powers, the elves, they're still faithful to God, and basically there's all, like Romans feeding Christians to lions, Numenor turns into mass human sacrifices of the faithful minority who still believe in God and won't worship the devil. And eventually Elendil leads all the survivors to, we're getting out of here, and they go to Numenor. They go from Numenor to Gondor. And maybe they had a sister who got killed in the fighting on the island. They probably had a wider family who got killed on the island. They probably had cousins and stuff. I don't have a problem with that, but they would be invented characters, and again, getting the whole, it rises or falls based on the strength of the writing. These are all the writing issues I have. That I don't have a problem. That I am terrified, and this is going to happen. People will use the race stuff to deflect from criticisms of bad writing. We've seen this before. And by people, I mean particularly the studio and fanatics who I've seen people saying this is going to be the biggest show ever based on the fact we know nothing about it. They didn't tell us that much about it. Tolkien didn't write a story for this. He wrote a vaguest of outlines in an appendix. Like the Game of Thrones prequel show is based on a published in-universe history book outline. Rhaenyra is a character in it, versus this is a 3,000-year scale of this is what the War of the Last Lions was like. Bits of it are Galadriel being important, but it's not a story. They'd have to invent too much of it. That not the OneRing.net. I felt better when I was watching their live stream going, we're trying to like this, but you've given us no reason to like it, and we're not going to hate on it just for casting black people, because there's different tribes. Why are you, and they said in the thing, Cliff and Quickbeam and everyone, shout out Quickbeam, said, why are you plugging hobbits into a story that doesn't have hobbits in it? I hope this isn't like a shameless Star Wars plugging in Porgs and Ewoks because we need to. That was the real fear, that they're changing the Legendarium. There's black people in the world of the books. There's stuff. This isn't an issue. They're going to use it to deflect from writing criticisms. And that's just the writing stuff. The third and final point I want to get to is read the Vanity Fair article, because they're trying to put a positive spin on this, but it terrifies me that OneRing.net is bringing up these issues for years, and I'm not going to be reporting on it that much, the behind the scenes. I'm going to report on this as someone who read the books and knows the story reasonably well. But thankfully, this is an even bigger fandom than like Game of Thrones and stuff. This is an established fandom with an established infrastructure to fight back against studio changes. So there's bigger fish than me that are going to be handling this. As a private individual, I don't have the time to do this. I'm doing Game of Thrones stuff, investigating what went wrong and everything, and trying to do exposés. Thankfully, I don't have the time to do this, but there's better men at work on it, better men and women working on this, of what the heck are you guys doing with this show? But I'll comment on it as just a private citizen, that the OneRing.net I trust will be the guardians of this. Still, I'm just repeating what they said, we have serious concerns about the behind-the-scenes production stuff. That's point 3, that's entirely separate from writing.